Welcome to Vet Life Reimagined. Have you ever seen an animal that needed to be transported on a plane? If you have, you may be one of the few, because often these animals are not going to show up in the seat next to you on the plane. You may be grateful about that after you hear this episode. Hint, hint. Our guest today is Dr. Nelva Bryant, the pet travel expert, but she has helped transport animals of all shapes and sizes. She is Delta Airlines' first staff veterinarian, and with this, she has a lot of fun stories to share with us. Prior to joining Delta, she retired in 2018 after 20 years of combined active duty service in the U.S. Army and Public Health Service. She served the final years at the CDC. In addition, she has worked in multiple federal agencies and has obtained training in program management, veterinary pathology, veterinary public health, and the enforcement of various federal regulations. She wants to use all aspects of her veterinary life to improve air travel for animals. She also has a great social media presence with her brand When Pets Fly, so make sure you find her over on Facebook and other media platforms. Now, let's get to this fun conversation. Thank you, Dr. Bryant, for being here today on Vet Life Reimagined. So the place I always get started with is, when did you know you wanted to get into veterinary medicine?
I probably learned a term when I was maybe around 8 years old that it was a veterinarian, but I always knew that I wanted to be an animal doctor. That's all I know. And I was probably one of those little kids by themselves, always playing outside, getting caterpillars, looking at the ants and what they're doing. When we had pets, well, we're allowed to have pets. At least my parents purchased pets for me. I had my hamsters, starting with 2, of course, got the male and female. Big mistake for folks. Just be aware of that big mistake. Don't get your child a male and a female because they multiplied and you left that responsibility with a kid who didn't understand how to sex them and figure out which ones were male and which ones were female. So it based upon color. And I had started with a little habit trail. And I'm aging myself. I don't know if they exist anymore, but it was a habit trail on one side of the room. And then I had another habit trail caboose on the other side of the room because I was trying to separate the sexes and I did it incorrectly. But 2 turned into probably about 30 and everything. So yeah, but always knew, always loved it. Couldn't think of anything else that I wanted to. Well, I had thought of something else, but I just thought it was far-fetched. The only other thing that I liked that was cool, I thought, remember, again, I'm aging myself, Megan, I know I'm a lot older than you. Do you know the movie, The American Werewolf in London, where they show the gentleman, see, look at here. See, they show the person transformed from a person into a werewolf and that the artistry, costumes and makeup and everything to transform him. I thought that was fascinating. So that's the only other thing that fascinates me is that, and I'm okay with sketches and stuff like that. I think I'm fairly good with that. But that was the only other thing that I thought was neat besides veterinary medicine. So I am glad I went down the path for veterinary medicine. I'm very honored and feel it was just a lifelong dream to become a veterinarian. So I'm very thankful for that. So yeah, since I was 8, basically.
Nice. Well, and you've had a really fascinating career journey, but let's start at vet school because that's where all of us can relate, right?
Oh, yes.
Going through vet school. So when you went into vet school, did you have an idea of what you might want to do? And did that change throughout your 4 years?
When you go to vet school and in my experiences, I only knew small animal veterinary medicine. So my thought was I was just going to be a small animal veterinarian. But during second year, I got introduced to veterinary pathology and literally fell in love with that. It was like finding out the cause of disease or death in an animal. It just fascinates me. My mentor, one of my mentor at the time was Dr. John King. Unfortunately, he's passed a few years ago, but very well-known veterinary pathologist. And he mentored me. He was tough on me, but it was he's a great guy. Either you loved him or you hated him. And I thought he was outstanding. I just loved how a lot of folks didn't understand if he was hard on you, it's because he saw a lot of potential in you. And there's either people who understood it or the others just shied away from him and just said he was the worst person ever, but he was an outstanding person, great mentor. And that started me down the path of loving really veterinary pathology. So when I graduated, by the time I graduated, I was torn, I didn't know if I wanted, practice or that. So what did I do? I went into practice because that's kind of the initial drive to be a veterinarian. And I got on the practice for the first year, and I just wasn't stimulated enough. It all depends on where you practice at, of course, in your clientele as far as what you're able to do. But I just wasn't feeling stimulated in an environment where I was in. And Dr. King searched me out, contacted my mom because there was a veterinary pathology residency position opening up. And he contacted my mom and got the information to me. And I talked to him, and he says, "Are you happy in practice?" And I was like, "No, I'm not being stimulated enough." He said, "Well, get your information up here and get back here and do your pathology residency." So that's what I did. So I went on that path of veterinary pathology and loved it. Loved it. But as the years went on, as far as the settings that you're able to work in, I felt after a while, it kept me in one spot. It kept me in a laboratory setting, which is fine and all. But I realized over the years that I also liked preventive medicine. I loved, as far as being in practice, I loved being able to communicate with the pet owners as far as preventive care and everything. Over time, I was in a position where I'm trying to decide, do I want to stay in a lab setting, or do I want to do something different to give me more exposure or a different path to follow? So, which great thought, in tears, honestly, I decided to pursue an MPH instead of my veterinary pathology as far as board certification and staying in that pathway. Decided to get an MPH to kind of open doors to another avenue, and have not looked back since. I'm very happy I made that change and everything. And I know I'm making it sound like it was a short distance, but as far as deciding on doing the MPH, but it was basically good 20 years after graduating from vet school, I completed my MPH. And honestly, it's one of the best things I could have done.
Oh, wow. And I'm glad you brought that up because I know a lot of people have asked, is it ever too late to go back and do an additional training? And the answer is absolutely not, right?
Never. It's even, I mean, it amazes me when you hear people that say, "Oh, I always wanted to be a veterinarian." It's like, well, what's stopping you now? What's stopping you? It's like, "Oh, that's when I was younger." But I don't think that should be, really, you should pursue whatever you want to in life. Yes, it'll be a challenge. Trust me, when I applied and was doing the MPH program. And I did my MPH. I graduated from vet school at Cornell University in 1993. I started the MPH program with the University of Iowa on their MPH for practicing veterinarian program. It is an outstanding program. Again, graduated from vet school in 1993. Close to a little bit before 2013, I started the MPH program with the MPH program for practicing veterinarians at University of Iowa. This was, like I said, a good, 18 to 20 years after getting out of vet school. By that time, I was married, divorced, single parent of a son. And I can tell you, that was the hardest I've ever worked in my life for that MPH. It was harder than vet school, but it may have been because I was at a different stage in my life. I was juggling a full-time job, again, single parenthood. And those 2 years it was hard work, but it was worthwhile. For those that are interested in MPH, I definitely highly recommend it. Your writing skills will significantly improve. It will really benefit you in the long run. So that's one of the positive things I got out of that is, man, my writing skills have really improved upon it. And again, it put me in a different sector in the veterinary profession. And I love it and everything, that opportunity. But there's never a point in life where you should say it's too late. I say for those that are even considering an MPH, because I thought about it earlier in my career. But if you think you want to move to that avenue, you think you want to go above and do something a little bit different, pursue it early. Don't wait like me where it was tough. But as we all learn in time anyway, nothing worthwhile is going to be easy for you. So just do it. But honestly, even though it was a 20-year gap, it was one of the best things I could have done with my career.
Well, and you started talking about it. It started to put you in a slightly different sector of veterinary medicine. So what did open up for you once you had your master's of public health?
Well, having given you as far as a pathway that I followed, as far as my career, initially I did practice for a year straight, went back to school for a veterinary pathology residency, finished that, and then came to I love Atlanta, Georgia. So I came down here to Atlanta for CDC. It was a veterinary pathology fellowship where I can get more laboratory animal pathology training. And my hope at the time was that I would get a full-time position and stay with the CDC, but it didn't work out. So I was at a point of trying to figure out, what am I going to do? And I've always in the back of my mind thought about the Army Veterinary Corps. The Army Veterinary Corps, actually, they had at the time, and I think it still exists, the top veterinary pathology training program worldwide. And that's where the avenue I wanted to go. Remember, I decided I wanted pathology, so that's the path I went. And got in, and unfortunately, I mean, the positive is I was placed in a veterinary pathology position because I had that background, which was awesome. You'd be amazed. I was doing some really amazing stuff. I was doing electron microscopy. I was in there transmission electron microscopy with the machine. I mean, I was doing some cool stuff. But I didn't get into the program with the Army because, number one, I didn't qualify compared to the others. There's like, you have to do, say 3 years basic training, or as far as when you join the Army. In a sense, I was competing against those who had more tenure in the Army than myself. So I can't expect to go straight into that program. You guys have more tenure. So either way, I started thinking about it more. And I decided, number one, I didn't like being in the Army. I didn't like knowing that it was a wonderful experience, but I don't like feeling like someone was controlling my career. And if you don't follow their avenue, they can put you wherever they want to put you. And I just couldn't handle that. So I switched from the United States Army Corps to United States Public Health Service, where I'm still active duty. I'm still serving my country. I'm just doing it in a different pathway. I switched, and it's funny, I went from, resigned my commission, on a Friday in the Army, and then come Monday morning, I was United States Public Health Service. I didn't lose any time in with everything. And that set me off on a great pathway of working in the federal government as a public health service officer. It gave me more control over where I wanted to be, and experiences and everything. As a member of the United States Public Health Service, as far as deployments, we do deploy with them. I did disaster relief, humanitarian assistance. That's what I loved. I was able to help. I'm part of my country, but I'm serving in different ways. And I love that opportunity and everything. But again, it took me on a pathway, a little bit different, federal government route, still veterinary. I did veterinary pathology for a little bit. I switched to USDA, Food Safety Inspection Service, got to experience that a little bit. Didn't really like it, but that's okay. That's okay. Then another opportunity came up with CDC to be as far as setting up their veterinary pathology lab back in Atlanta again. And I jumped on that, and that held me there at CDC and everything, the opportunities there. So kind of went around, great opportunities to as far as a veterinarian, different aspects of my career, as far as helping with public health, or veterinary public health, or even research. So it just gave me a different skill set before. And again, time is going on, and it's going, like, to be honest with you, if you think about it, it's going just like that. 2018 comes, and basically I'm retiring. I mean, that's how fast it went. It's amazing. I went to CDC. I was establishing the veterinary pathology lab. And again, that's where I started to decide to myself, do I want to stay in a laboratory setting, or do I want to move further? With the MPH, it did open doors within CDC. It opened where now, as a veterinarian, I can work in more veterinary public health related issues. And I honestly, like I said, one of the best things I could have done. I landed in the quarantine branch for CDC and became the dog importation SME, a subject matter expert. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it looks as though, as far as the team that it was on, one person was moving on to a different position, and that role was open and no one else wanted to do it. And I'm like, hey, I'll do it. It's regulatory. I learned that I do like regulatory regulations and read them. It's kind of boring, but I do like them. But the position was open. I filled it and decided I would master it as much as possible. And before you know it, like I said, I was retiring, and I was looking for opportunities in my career to continue on. And 20 years, I'm still young enough to work. My son at that time was about to go to college. What else am I going to do? I can't sit around. When you retire, yes, you have a pension, but there's more that I can do. So I was looking for opportunities, and saw something within LinkedIn for Delta Airlines that they were looking for a veterinarian. And I applied for it and just really went for it because I was like, wow, this will be an opportunity to still help with animals coming to the United States as far as regulations and still continue on that pathway. I love the role that I'm in with Delta because I'm combining veterinary pathology, because unfortunately, say if an animal gets, if it dies during transport, necropsy is done. I understand how to read a necropsy report, the significance, all the details. As far as years ago, clinical practice experience, I'm familiar with that. Reads and everything, of course, I'm familiar with that. And the regulations and context as far as looking at federal government or state departments too, familiar with it. So it just led me down this pathway, but it wasn't a straight shot.
Rarely is it ever a super straight shot.
I know it never is. So to go back to what you're saying, just a thought, did I ever expect to be where I am now when I started? No idea. Who knew?
I certainly didn't. I mean, when I first saw your profile on LinkedIn about, veterinarian and Delta, it's not something I would have thought, which now I'm actively searching for these very unique positions in veterinary medicine. But, first of all, I want to commend the airlines for thinking about this. But is this have they always had this, or when did airlines realize, oh, it might actually be a advantageous thing to have a veterinarian as part of our team?
I hate to say it, Megan, but I think in a lot of ways in the U.S., we're behind the loop because internationally, I think they are embracing veterinarians and realizing the input they have in different industries. For the airline, I mean, this was the CEO of Delta at the time decided he wanted a veterinarian. And one of my managing directors that made a comment to me that he says he had no idea what a veterinarian, he said they were told they had to do it and they hired me, but he had no idea what a veterinarian could do because in the mindset is that veterinarians are clinical medicine. If you think about it, that's why we're always so limited because the only view that folks have of us is practice. But there's so much more we can do. Now you've got to have, I would say, there's so much more we can do, but you got to have the background to do it. I have been approached by a fellow veterinarian saying, hey, are there any other roles like this? How can you, any opportunities? There may, and hopefully there will be in the future, but you have to prepare yourself too. Again, my route that I didn't come straight into this spot. All the different things I've experienced, veterinary pathology, dog importation regulations, just even regulations with food safety inspection, knowing things are regulated, how to apply them. All those things built up to where I am today. So straight clinical practice, you're not ready. You'll probably be bored out of your mind. It's not what you think. It's someone might say to me, what's the policy on certain animals transporting? And before I know it, I say, I know who regulates what. And that's a common thing as far as we would say, when you're doing your MPH, one common question we always has is because I don't know if you know in the U.S., no one organization regulates, say, all animals. It's like, or even eggs. One will do shelled eggs, the other one do outside the egg, when the eggs are out of the shell. I mean, our country is really split up on how animals and animal products are regulated. So someone might ask me, what's the regulation on chickens going this and what and everything? And I know how to find it quickly and give an answer. Crazy as it may sound, you might say it might not be significant, but it is important as far as animal transportation. We want to do things right and follow policies and, all the regulations properly. So, but either way, I would say again, for those that are interested in going on this pathway, my recommendation would be that MPH will be a big help. Again, I'm doing a lot of writing too. So the MPH will help with knowing regulations, making those contacts, increasing your writing skills. So that would be the best way to go with it. Let's say coming straight out of clinical practice, and I don't think you'd be ready for it, to be honest with you, is my thought.
So if someone was interested in potentially looking in this direction, what are some other, you mentioned the Masters of Public Health, what are some other opportunities or advice that you would give somebody on, well, look for experiences that would give you this kind of background?
Yeah, I would say, again, look for experiences that are going to give you more of a learning regulations in those contexts, because I know that some of them, I mean, they're a pain in the butt to sit and really dig deep into. But if you can just start working and start learning about different regulations as far as coming into the country, that's what CDC regulates. But dogs coming to the country, or actually for those that are interested in rescue animals, learn the regulations for them coming to the country. That falls in a different category. That's APHIS that does that one. So just start learning who does what, how they connect together. And they're separate. Unfortunately, like I said, CDC and then there's APHIS. Very rarely do they communicate in a lot of ways, unfortunately, after our government. But either way, I would say just start learning the regulations, start interacting more with it, and find out. Even like I said, you can work for a rescue organization and find out, okay, well, if I want to get some dogs from, I don't know, Hawaii to Georgia, what would be the regulations? And start learning what's going on as far as animal transportation regulations. I think they're more developed when it comes to agricultural animals, but for dogs and cats, that's where we need to strengthen things.
Interesting. And then when, we had our earlier call, you mentioned also like health certificates tend to be really common, and you're trying to help create a more robust education around even that I mean, you even mentioned like this could be another stream of revenue if you really do what you're doing.
Honestly, really, it honestly can, because of most veterinarians, from what I gather, most of them are saying, I'm too busy. I'm too busy doing surgeries, dentals, whatever, just too busy doing all these other things. Then now you're going to make me sit down and I got to look through a book or search on the internet for information. It's like, I don't have the time for it. So yeah, a way that you can help your fellow veterinarians that don't have the time, and you're interested in the regulatory side as far as health certificates for domestic travel or international health certificates for international travel, having just a business that focuses on that is huge. I know one in the U.S. thus far. I only know of one group that's doing it. Is Positives Health Certificates, I believe is their name. They're doing it. And I think they're based up maybe near Boston, Northeast region of U.S., but they're doing it. And they have a service that's basically fellow veterinary technician. And I think it's two veterinary technicians decide to go in business together. And that's what they do. They help if there's someone that's going to be a pet owner traveling, I guess the veterinarians refer them to this group, and then they help develop as far as making sure all the documentation is in order, viewing the medical records for the animals, and getting everything set for them for travel, because it is complex. Traveling internationally, definitely, if you don't meet the requirements, they're going to be coming back to the U.S. And also, folks have to realize too, traveling to Hawaii, most of the U.S. states, it's rabies vaccination certificate, no big deal. Try that going to Hawaii, being that it's a rabies-free state. Forget it. Those pets will be sent right back to the U.S. Or held in quarantine for a good period of time. So that cute little weekend trip that your client might say, hey, I'm going to Hawaii, I'm going to take my dog with me. Yeah, that's going to be really.
Well, and again, more and more as our pets are seen as part of the family, and people might want to travel with their pets more. This is just probably a growing opportunity for.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it really is a growing opportunity for veterinarians. And again, hey, why don't you, like I said, just take an interest in learning this information. I've given webinars on international pet travel to support the GVL, Global Vet Link, DVM 360. Even here in Georgia, I did a few things on as far as I did a webinar, and it was basically just saying that, hey, pet travel, it is regulated. You have to realize there's plenty of regulations behind it, and compliance is kind of mandatory. Michael, actually, to be honest with you, to say why I really wanted this role within Delta, why I really wanted to do this, is because I kind of have a problem with, say, an industry being blamed for something that's really out of their control. Everyone always say, oh, pet travel by air, worst thing ever. But technically, it really isn't. I've looked at the data because U.S. airlines have to report to the Department of Transportation on a monthly and a yearly basis since at least initially, since 2005, I believe, airports have to report any animal incidents to the Department of Transportation. These animal incidents, and animals are going to be dogs or cats, basically, or pet in the house. The incidents are going to be an injury, escape, or a death that occurs. So again, since 2005 present, that's been reported. But now since 2016 on, they have to report also the number of animals that are being transported. So now you have basically you can put a fraction it out and decide what the numbers really are. What does it look like? Well, I've been reviewing them, and say since 2016 to 2022, I believe it said the number of animals being transported between, say, 15 U.S. airlines has been about 2.6 million. Guess how many animal incidents?
Probably not that many in comparison.
I think, and I keep forgetting the exact number. I need to write it down so I remember. But imagine, say around, say 170.
Oh, wow. Okay. Not too bad.
So it's really not as bad as everyone grades it to be. I mean, and I'm not trying to negate the significance behind if I say the 170, because it is important. No one wants to lose an animal during transport or anything to happen to them. But even within analyzing that, again, my research background, I can't help it. I'm going to look at the numbers and then I'm going to go further. A lot of these cases, necropsies were performed on these animals. And it's not just, they'll just say, hey, this happened. They'll give an explanation what happened. So you can review this information. I mean, this stuff is readily available online. But within reviewing it, found that a lot of these injuries that they're talking about are actually pets trying to escape their crates. They're not, something released in the airline. The animals, the dogs or cats are trying to break out of their crate. So that's telling you one thing right there. It's telling you that that pet is not acclimated to that crate for travel. That's what it's telling you. So again, you didn't prepare your pet properly, so that's there. Then also there's cases where, again, you have necropsies done and the reports up there. Look at it and a lot of them were due to underlying pre-existing medical conditions. So again, pets aren't really medically fit for travel, but they're traveling. So we need to do further as far as that. Now, we talked a little bit health certificate. I would say health certificate. No, that doesn't mean they're healthy. That's not what it means. It means the health certificate is also called a certificate of veterinary inspection. And I think certificate of veterinary inspection is actually the technical term, but somehow health certificate. Well, that's only really saying that there's no signs of an infectious disease in that animal. And infectious diseases is totally different from diabetes, heart disease, and all these other things. So it's giving the perception, what you call health certificate, that for the pet owner, my pet's healthy. What are you talking about? My vet said he's healthy. It's not what it's saying. So my thought is we need to take it a step further as veterinarians and maybe just look at the whole thing differently. We need to make sure they're medically fit for travel. Let's review the medical history. Let's make sure there's no underlying heart disease, diabetes, history of seizures, being on chronic medications and everything. Because guess what? They're not good candidates for air travel. And let's start responding to that. Because I bet you one thing, Megan, you're young and cute and everything. I bet you if your doctor said you should not travel because of whatever reason, you'll listen. Why can't we do that for our pets? We're supposed to be their advocates, right? We should be advocating for that pet and give that advice out. Now, of course, it's up to that pet owner. But if they really understood the significance behind if there's a pre-existing medical condition, I think they'd oblige. I think they'd listen. So, again, I think, like I said, overall, was analyzing the DOT reportable events. I believe that it's an indicator, number one, that it's not as bad as what we all say or social media has us believe, but it also says that pets aren't prepared for air travel. And some of them that are traveling shouldn't have been traveling in the first place. That's what I get from analyzing them.
Yeah. And like you said, that's not really clearly explained. It's right. So people don't understand that a lot of those were, well, they had a heart condition before or something like that,
they don't understand the significance. I mean, as a veterinarian, what I like to do or how I explain things, I personalize and humanize almost everything. I mean, something simple as something simple as urinary tract infection. I was like, well, it's a female client. I'm like, hey, I'm sure you've had a urinary tract infection before. Remember, urgency to urinate, all these things that can happen. That's what you're going to see with your pet. You might see blood in his urine. You might see the frequency to go. They can't hold it. You might see, like I said, blood, foul smelling urine. Those are all indicators of a urinary tract infection. And I can kind of relate because I may have had a urinary tract infection in the past. And it's the same thing. So if they understood, okay, if someone says your pet has a heart condition, has a heart murmur, start putting it together and put it in terms that they understand. Because I don't think they get it. It's almost like they look at them and they're totally a different. Well, it's like they're saying, we're animals too, So it's like putting them in a separate category than us. No, it's heart disease for us and heart disease for them. It's going to be some similarities. We've got same organ systems. We've got to put some similarities there and start explaining things a little bit better, is what I'm saying. But yeah, they need a better explanation, need to understand the significance. And I don't think they get it.
Yeah. And back to, making health certificates a business. Well, also, something that I always remind people that technology will never take away from us is because guess what? Technology could probably compute and do a health certificate and have everything and you just sign and you're done. But that computer may not know the pet and the pet owner like you do. So that personal putting the puzzle pieces together where as the veterinarian that this pet has a health condition that no, it's not a box on a health certificate, but it's something that you do know from your background and you can communicate that to ultimately advocate for the pet and support the pet owner on, back to your example on if I wanted to go to Africa and my doctor said, well, that does sound exciting. However, I happen to know you, whatever. I'm healthy, everyone. But if, there was something I would want her to tell me, he or her, to tell me that and not just like sign the dotted line and just let me do something. So that is, I think, a part of our responsibility. And again, if you're looking for a niche or something where you can specialize to grow your career options, that could also be very easily looped into a very specialized service that people will want.
I think so too. I guess it might be harder. Again, because my career was a little bit different, I didn't do straight practice all the way through. Again, I did a year practice straight, went back to school, and I did relief veterinary work from time to time. So I kind of only got the outside in. I don't know as far as the relationships, but as far as when I have a client, even if I know them or just met them or whatever, I still try to relate to them and kind of dig a little bit deeper. Kind of treat the pet almost like if it were mine. What would I do for my pet? And go from that mindset, because if it were my pet, I knew it had this, would I take it? I don't think I'd do it. So if we start maybe personalize things, and I know it's probably rough out there. I guess in certain situations you can be so busy, it's hard to personalize it, but you gotta just personalize it and think about it as if it were my pet, what would I do? What would I say? And again, it's up for them to decide. Give you another prime example of something. Fairly recently, 2 different clients, and I do Banfield every other weekend, Banfield work. One person kind of criticized me. She says she wanted to get some trazodone for her dog and everything. And I said, there might be other ways. She said, oh, my dog has anxiety, I have trazodone. So, well, there might be other options for you to calm your pet. I mean, I understand for storms or what have you, but for noises and there might be other methods you can use to calm your pet. You could use music. There's a gentleman from Zounds Music for Pets. He has music that's geared towards dogs and cats and it calms them. I said, so you've got that therapy you can try. You can try the calming chews, all these different things you can try to calm your pet and release the anxiety. And her response after I said this is, all other vets are giving it. Why don't you want to give it? I said, well, man, I'm just giving you an option because I'm thinking personally for my dog, I don't think I want my dog doped up and sedated. I want my dog regular. So get her being kind of why not? Then I had another client and I explained to him, he said anxiety. I think my dog needs medication. I said, why don't you try behavioral therapy? And all the other suggestions, check the behavior and everything. He says, oh, thank you for giving me all the different options for me. There's instead of just going straight to a drug. So again, I relate a lot of things to my own pet, and I just wouldn't want my pet to be doped up. I wouldn't want to be on medication. And then also think about it, say to myself too, if it was a child, would you go first for your child to medication? Is that your first thought? Your kid has anxiety or whatever, you going straight to medication? Can you try behavior modification? Can you do something else besides drugs? And that's what it's turning into, which I don't understand that. I don't get that.
Yeah. Well, and I think you pull out another thing that's really just common. It's part of being humans, but especially a human who is always trying to give advice in the medical field, is that you're never going to 100% please everyone. And that is not our objective.
No, I know it's frustrating though. It's just like it's frustrating because again, you don't know if you should or not, but that's just me. I like to give options. I like to educate and just instead of pulling out, medication kind of thing. But no, you're right though. But I think we should start looking into other options and realizing there's other things besides drugs, and maybe we could advise them to try other things. I don't know. I just think it's kind of interesting. I think I'm actually, you know what? My question that I have, and maybe you can comment on it, but it just seems as though in that since the pandemic, there's a lot of pets on that have anxiety. And I'm like, what happened? Is it the pet or is it the owner? I think they're getting it from the owner personally, but what is going on?
Probably a little both, but yes, I think there's a lot that we could probably go into on what I've heard people talk about when it comes to anxiety. I think the close proximity that people got with their pets, they realized things, a lot of change for pets, especially people going back to work, probably made pet parents nervous as well. But, pet parents really do care about their pets. I think that's ultimately where most of it shakes out. And that is where we get to be a really special part of the human animal bond, is really trying to make sure that human animal bond is as strong as possible, whether we're advocating for a very healthy pet or, we are trying to support a pet owner they want to do the best. And I love that, back to, you said you really like to educate you have social media sites, you do lives. Not very many veterinarians are brave enough to go on live and educate.
Look, and I always said this, Megan, believe it or not, this is cool, us talking here, but I have to push myself to do other stuff sometimes because I really am shy at heart. I really am, but I really feel passionate about pet travel and education regarding it. And my Facebook Live that I have, I think it's a cool opportunity because I'm introducing other folks that have us, that in a sense are stakeholders in the pet travel industry too, just doing different things. And I just think it's cool that I've met these folks and just say, hey, let's have fun. Let's just kind of, just as we're doing here, it's fun this way. Trust me, it's fun. It is live, so they get to see my goofy side sometimes. I'm sorry, I'm not perfect, and I might mispronounce something, but it's me. It's okay. It's me. Like I said, I'm a nerd in a lot of ways. Most veterinarians probably are. I'm a little bit nerdy, but that's just part of my personality, part of me.
I love that. Well, before we go, because I just love the story so much, I was hoping you would share it again. And it was a time that an animal escaped, and you never actually said what species it was, but you mentioned that it's not just cats and dogs. Zoos are transporting animals. There's all sorts of animals.
Yes.
And you talked about that an animal escaped and you had to do all the logistics to try to solve this problem. So do you mind sharing that story with everyone?
Yeah, I'm trying to think which one I told you. Trust me, there's been other instances. I've heard some things too. You've got, what's in the airline? The coolest thing is that gorgeous dogs or cats. really, the airlines are helping zoos as far as conservation to build the ability to transport animals between zoos and everything nationally. And it gets them there faster and everything. I'm trying to think. Okay. I think I told you the story about the trust me, I hate to say it, Megan, there's more than one. And I can't remember
whichever one stands out. Whichever one stands out.
Which one stands out the most? What stands out the most is, I mean, there's zoo animals, as I said. There's birds that are transported. There's even reptiles transported. There was an instance of got a call about a rattlesnake. The container for a rattlesnake got broken, and they were, they had the container, they had it in an enclosed room away, but it was like in a transfer between locations, but they had it confined. And I think initially the person says, well, we have a worker here that said that they have snakes and you can go, they're familiar with snakes and they can go get it. And I'm like, no. Now, meanwhile, I didn't mention that was a baby cobra. So baby king cobra and everything, which doesn't matter. Baby, adult, doesn't matter at all. We wound up contacting, like I said, kept the room enclosed, don't go in there. We wound up contacting the wildlife officer at the airport. And most airports have these individuals on staff because you don't want to have bird strikes or different things and everything. So they're there to kind of assist with that. But we contacted the wildlife officer and he came in to assist and help package the animal and everything like that. But yeah, and this wasn't here in Atlanta. This was out west, Utah. So just coordinating and trying to work through how can we get this animal captured without anybody getting injured and getting the right people in the right places. So yeah, some of the things you do.
So just in case if people are like me and now wondering if snakes on a plane could actually happen, are these rattlesnakes transported on human transport?
This is going to be cargo only. And there's cargo only. This was not snakes on a plane, the movie. That movie, but it's not snakes on a plane, the movie. This was by cargo and they have to be packaged according to certain standards for this to be allowed. To be honest with you, I think Delta is the only airline that actually will accept poisonous animals. The others won't even transport them. We do it as long as they comply with it's basically IATA, the International Air Transportation Association regulations, and package them appropriately, then we can do it. But outside of that, no. But yeah, this one, I don't know what happened, how it got damaged during transport, but it was the fear that someone could get bit. I didn't care if it was a baby. It was just protecting everyone around and getting the right people in the right place kind of thing. So, but yeah, the coolest thing is, like I said, what's in Delta, we developed this stream of trying to kind of, in a sense, behind the scenes, what do you do? An animal gets ill, or for your dogs and cats, to get ill or illness, injury, or death. We have a system in place where we respond to what to do. I'm going to tell you a cool story, good story you'll love. There was a puppy traveling from somewhere in California to transfer here in Atlanta and to go up to Pennsylvania. This was a couple of years back. So it was a puppy that's being purchased from California and being shipped to Pennsylvania. Well, in transit here in Atlanta, one of the ramp agents noticed that it was in respiratory distress. And lo and behold, and so he stopped the whole shipment. Basically called it a no ride. Contacted our internal system, and we were able to transport that pet from the flight to a local veterinary hospital and everything. Local veterinary hospital for treatment. Lo and behold, the little puppy pooped in his cage, ingested it, aspirated, respiratory distress. So he had aspiration pneumonia. I mean, it was touch and go for a good 5 days straight. It was just like, I don't know if this dog is going to make it. But meanwhile, I mean, Delta took care of us for his fees or what have you. The owners, again, it was going to new owners in that location. So they didn't know. We were giving them daily updates on what's going on with the puppy. But he survived it. After, say, a good 2 weeks of treatment, he made it through. And now we're thinking, how are we going to get him from Atlanta up to Pennsylvania? And like, well, I don't think he's a good candidate to go by cargo any longer. I don't want him anywhere near cargo. I went and bought a pet and took him and got on a flight, flew up to Pennsylvania and gave it up to the owners and everything. So positive stories happen out of this. Again, as I said, you might hear the negative stories. There are a lot of positive things that happen. There's a lot more positive outcomes than you'll ever hear, because that's not news. That's not, the news they want to hear. They want to hear negative. But a lot of positive things have happened. Very happy that we had a very astute ramp agent that identified, this is not right. And it basically set off our internal system of what we do to take care of pets during transport. And we did the best for that pet, and he made it, got him to his pet owner. So it was a really good case.
That is a good story. And, thankfully there was a vet involved that could kind of help lead that whole situation.
Again, we have, like I said, internally we have to, and that's actually under the USDA for air carriers that transport your dogs and cats. They need to make sure there's a veterinary service provider nearby, just in case you need their assistance. And also need to make sure there's a kennelling service or boarding and kennelling service nearby, just in case they need to be boarded overnight. So that's something the airline must make sure is in order. So like I said, it activated our internal system. We had already connected out and worked perfectly.
Hi, we'll be back with the second half of the show after this quick break. But first, I wanted to take a moment and thank you for listening to the Vet Life Reimagined podcast. If you're enjoying the show, the best way to support us is to leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast app. It really helps us to reach more listeners, and we really appreciate it. Thanks for listening. And now back to the episode. Well, before our time runs out, I have a final 4 questions to kind of wrap everything up. And the first question is, what is something that people may get wrong about you?
That I'm outgoing, and I love that. That I'm probably an extrovert when I'm not. I'm probably both, but I think that I'm probably more of an extrovert, but I'm not.
Well, I will have to watch more of your lives on social media. So I will try to shuttle everyone else there as well, because they sound a lot of fun and very, very informative. So yes, absolutely. The second one is, do you have a hidden skill or interest?
All I can say is I love veterinary medicine. I love animals. I like working out, but it doesn't show. But I like working out. I like scenery. I love scenery. Okay, this is going to be a weird contradiction. I'm going to indicate myself a little bit. A contradiction. I love nature, but I don't want to be in it. So I love the beautiful setting. It's gorgeous. Don't take me camping. Don't take me hiking. I'm scared of snakes. I'm scared of anything that's wild. That's not. I'm scared of spiders. I know I didn't answer your question fully. I'm probably the opposite of what my mom laughs at me, because she said, you're a veterinarian. You should be this way. You should not be afraid. I'm like deep down, I'm human. And there's a lot of things I'm afraid of. So, I'm sorry, Megan, I didn't answer that question.
No, I think that's even better, because it does brings out.
I'm so, but my human side, I'm probably, like I said, in that setting. Yes, I can do all these different things, present myself a certain way, but at heart, there's a lot of things that do scare me with animals. In practice, I love doing things for the animals. I always say, just don't let me get bit. Please don't let me get hurt, because I will extend and put myself in positions. Sometimes I probably shouldn't, but I'm like, make sure you hold them. Just don't let me get bit and I'll be fine. But I love animals. It's my dream that I'm very proud and thankful that I was able to pursue my dream job, basically. And again, it has its challenges. Veterinary medicine is, we do have our challenges in the profession, but I can't think of doing anything other than what I'm doing now, to be honest with you.
Well, and maybe that'll lead into this question. I have no idea. So the third question is, do you have anything on your bucket list that you would like to do?
I want to go to Thailand.
Oh, nice.
Only because I love Thai food. I want to go to Thailand.
I was going to say,
I want to try authentic Thai food. So I want to do that. Yeah, I think that's really about it as far as what I really want to do regarding that. It's just, I want to go to Thailand.
Do you have any travel perks with working for Delta? Will they take you?
I do get to travel a lot. It has its ups and downs. I'll tell you a funny story. I just went to a meeting in Mexico and got a culture shock going through Mexico City. So I need to learn Spanish. That's what I've learned, is that's one language. I took Latin in high school. Don't know, again, I'm older than you, Megan, but when I was going through high school, they claimed if you wanted to be a veterinarian, you need to learn Latin. So I took Latin all through high school, got Regents diploma on Latin. So I know the roots of a lot of words, but sort of helpful. But I kind of wish I would have taken Spanish in a way, because I went to the meeting in Mexico. It was in Merida, Mexico. I transferred to Mexico City. I had 45 minutes to get through customs in Mexico to get to my flight. And I'm asking questions and no one is speaking English and I'm just petrified. But either way, they brought this family to the front of the line of the customs line to go through there. I followed behind them because I was like, I have 45 minutes. I get up there and the person that led the family up there looked at me and she said, "Are you with them?" And I said, basically she was saying if I was with them. I said, "No." So she was telling me to get back at the end of the line. I was like, please, por favor, please. I have 45 minutes. And she let me go. I went through and I think okay, this is the funniest thing that happened then. I made it through and now I'm at the part where you go through the gate again through, scan your bag and everything. And agent comes up to me, he's saying, waving me to come. And I'm standing there. And he said, something, Mikado. He said, Mikado. So my brain said naked. So I'm like, he's like, something. And he touched his shirt. And I was like, this guy asked me to take my shirt off. I was like, she's saying it too. I'm like, so the guy behind me, American, he says, take your jacket off. I'm like, he's like, yes. He's going to tell me to take my shirt. I didn't know what was going on. That was, so I can laugh at myself about it. That was very traumatic going through there and not knowing Spanish. Yeah. So if you ever travel through Mexico City,
take a dictionary.
Take a dictionary, something. If you have, yes, just be ready. That was a very challenging airport for me. And I think out of all the travels I've done, that was the most interesting airport I've ever been through. Have traveled internationally before, but that really shocked me. But yeah, I can laugh at myself because again, I was just like, saying, take your shirt off?
It's like, what place is this?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So, but yeah.
The final question is, what is something you're most grateful for?
I'm grateful for the opportunities. And I can say sometimes we're always grateful sometimes for the positive things that we deal with. But sometimes those negative things we dealt with at the time that seemed like the worst thing ever in your life. But that actually, I realized, redirected me to a different pathway. So I could say I could be thankful for kind of even the good and the bad sometimes, because you can learn from the bad. So I'm thankful for just every opportunity I've ever had. Positives, yes, of course, wonderful. I'm thankful for where I am right now with Delta. Some of the negative things I've experienced, you know what? It's kind of, say if a door closes this way, don't stop where you are. Keep moving, even if it is lateral, keep moving and then move forward. So I'm thankful for all of those because, again, with my career, it wasn't a straight path going here. There were a lot of closed doors, but the closed doors redirected me. So I'm thankful for that.
Oh, that is very wise. I think we forget that as well. It's to reflect back, and even the things that didn't go the way we thought they were going to go, a lot of times it was for the best because, it put us where we are today.
Yeah, it's hard when you're going through it. And now being that I've gone through some things, I can look back and see it. I'm like, yeah, it was supposed to happen that way. But of course, at the time, it's the worst thing ever. Boo-hoo, cry, trust me, worst thing ever. But in the long run, it guides you to where you're supposed to be. You got to be thankful for that.
I love that. This has been the Vet Life Reimagined podcast. Whether you are listening or watching on YouTube, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Please make sure you are subscribed to catch all these amazing people in our profession. Also, send this episode to someone you think who would appreciate it. Have a recommendation for someone who would be a good guest? Please reach out on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook. There aren't that many Dr. Sprinkles. Until next time, Vet Lifers.